Hello and welcome to Siggraph 2019. We are here in Los Angeles with Mac Moore of Conductor. Good morning, Mac.
Good to see you again.
Good, thank you.
Yeah,
Year two, first morning of the show.
Yep.
Just kicking things off. You guys are all set up?
We're all set up, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And what are you showing this year?
So we have a lot to talk about. Probably the biggest of those was an announcement we made about a month ago now where we're partnering with Amazon Web Services. So we started the platform for Conductor on GCP, and just through, we've always talked about driving the financials down for access to cloud and how economic that elasticity into the cloud is. And so we saw from what we were getting, we really need some bit of diversification of that portfolio to drive down that cost. And so AWS was kind enough to kind of do that, and I think it's going to be a great partnership.
Excellent. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how your users are going to benefit? I mean, you touched upon it, but really in their day-to-day.
Yeah, for sure. So it's really about architectural efficiencies when you go to the cloud. Obviously, there's a bit of a collaboration and co-opetition environment between all the cloud providers, but I think they all openly acknowledge that diversity really breeds innovation. It breeds acceleration of how we're doing things, and so we're problem solving with both cloud providers. What that really buys us is the ability to get efficient with the architecture. And as we get efficient with the architecture, that drives our cost of goods down considerably. And we're starting to pass that on to our end studios and end customers.
Great. And those said customers, while we're talking about them, what kind of projects are they rendering?
Yeah, it's interesting. So our DNA comes from visual effects, post-production. So that's certainly our sweet spot. But as people have started seeing what we can do and how we do it, they've really taken some interesting turns. I mean, certainly image processing is still a sweet spot, but expanding beyond that, people are starting to see, hey, it's really an auto-scaling compute environment at its basis. So we have people doing machine learning applications just using our batch processing for parallelism of simulations. Medical applications, automotive applications. So it's been really nice to diversify and kind of see some of the variety people are doing.
And you talked about your roots. Most people watching this are familiar with Conductor already, but do you want to give people who might not be just sort of the 5-second how you guys started and
what? Conductor was born out of post-production out of a studio called Atomic Fiction. Atomic Fiction that was recently acquired by Method Studios. Actually, this time last year.
That's right. That was a year
very
ago.
Close. Yeah, very close to a year ago now. So they really built it out of this dynamic between the traditional methods of rendering at a studio where you'd buy all this really heavy fixed on-prem infrastructure, but your projects would fluctuate. And so you'd have a high time where you'd need 1,000 nodes and you'd be using 100% of that.
Huge feature film.
Project finishes and wraps up, that stuff's collecting dust. So I liken the industry and what they were looking at back in 2010 when they were established and when they started creating this technology to the automotive industry and where it's going with ride shares. You have people making the equation now that, well, do I need to own a car? Does a permanent car fit my business model or my lifestyle model?
Correct, and my budget.
Right, and so when I'm in LA, all I'm doing is Ubering because I don't need to rent a car. I don't need a car sitting in a parking space.
Exactly.
That's how people are starting to feel about infrastructure as it pertains to compute and rendering. And so I think we really scratched that itch, and that sort of adoption we're really seeing it accelerate here in the last 12 months.
And it wouldn't be a trade show if we didn't have a few buzzwords floating around. And cloud has, if you pardon the pun, I was not going for this. Cloud has been floating around for a few years now. And you touched on it a little bit earlier, but where do you see the cloud now in terms of visual effects work and where it's really kicking in?
So I'm a big crossing the chasm idea person, probably from my background in technology and how technology disrupts. And so there's this concept that you have these visionaries and these early adopters picking up on the value of something, and it's really about how you jump this virtual chasm from early adoption into early majority. And that is really a business conversation when you really drive into an ease of use paradigm that lets the normal pragmatist pick it up and use it effectively. And I think in the last 12 to 18 months, that's where cloud's gone. It's not so, like brute force effort to know deep learning of Kubernetes and auto scaling and batch processing. You don't need to know those things. Companies like mine hopefully help you in that on-ramp, and really just making it more approachable. And so we've seen a lot of people recognize the benefits of elastic cloud, better matching their elastic demand needs for post-production. And yeah, we've seen great growth, 5x growth over the last 12 months.
It's not just a
for sure.
conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us
having me
year
again.
2, back to back with us. Thank you, Mac. And that is Mac and I saying goodbye from Siggraph 2019. Thanks for watching.